question number 3 of the PhilNITS FE afternoon portion of the exam. In this question, we are being asked, we gotta choose from the answer group below the correct answer to be inserted in each blank in the SQL statement, SQL1. Okay, the way to answer sub-question number 1 is to, of course, read the text. And then afterwards, we gotta take a look at the tables. And of course, this part where you got the blanks. Now, if you've done any of the SQL training sessions, or you've gotten into one of those MySQL database introductory class, then I think you should be able to somewhat figure out how things are going in this statement, SQL statement. Although in my case, when I first answered this about half a year ago, I think I didn't get all the answers correct. But I think if we analyze it, we should be able to at least somewhat understand why certain answers were like that. And in this case, if we are going for the first blank, which is blank A, it's saying that we select the product ID and the product name, and another thing that we have to look for, and from my notes, it's supposed to be P quantity. And the way to figure that out is to look at the resulting table, because this sub-question is also accompanied by a resulting table once we execute this SQL command. And if we look at it now, it says here that we got product ID, product name, and estimate quantity as part of the result. Okay? And if we look again at the SQL statement, particularly the first part, says here we got product ID, product name, and the other one is estimate quantity. But I think we don't have the word estimate there, and what we got is P quantity. But just to make sure, let's look at the choices. Okay, here for answer group A and B, we don't have the estimate quantity at all, but we do have the quantity there, except that we also have a D dot quantity. Although I think in this case we gotta stick with the P quantity. And the reason for that is because if you go back to the SQL command, the P here and the D here are not the same, and we'll know from the line, the row above it, that D is supposed to be the extracted order detail. And then the P is for the product table, because we got a product table, we got the from here portion, and a table for the extracted order table, order detail table, extracted order detail table. And therefore, what we're going for is the quantity from the product. And that's why it's P dot quantity. Now, where does this extracted order detail table come in? We need it because we gotta find the value for the P quantity. Okay? And the way to get that is we have to do this command where it has when blank is null, then 0, else blank. And that's how we get the estimate quantity. Now, for the answer, it says here that we have to do a sum function where the input would be the D quantity. Okay, and so what we're going for is the sum of the D dot quantity. And the way to understand that further is to look at the table just before this. And here we have the extracted order detail table. Now, from here we can find the quantity for the product ID with the name LC100. But of course, this is only a portion of the table, and it's supposed to have more, and what we want is to have the total of all the LC100 that was ordered, the total amount. And to do that, we got to do the sum of all the rows with the product ID LC100, for example in this case, and the quantity. That's why we have here the sum, the quantity. And so if we attempt to reflect back on the previous blank blank A, if we just went with D dot quantity, then it looked like we are only going for the first one perhaps that we find. But in fact, the extracted order detail table would have many more, and therefore we need to get more of the quantity of each of the products with the same product ID. Okay, all right, so given that, we have, I think, another part here where for letter C we gotta choose left outer join. Among the choices, if you look at the available answers, we have inner join, right outer join, left outer join. These are actually explained also in this part in the notes. And left outer join, what it does is returns the values on all rows from the left table and the matched rows from the right table. All the unmatched rows are set to null. Okay, so what that means is if we got a product ID here and the other table, the table with the products, this part here has that one, then they match. Nevertheless, because we're starting first with this part as the left side, if we don't find any match with the extracted table, extracted detail table, then we don't include that anymore. So from here, we have the product ID, okay, and then from there, for example, LC100, we go to the extracted order detail table and find that there's an LC100 here, and that's why we can include that in the result. And therefore, left outer join is the correct command for what we want to do in this case. And I think this one actually, there are parts that are easy to understand, but there are parts that are definitely puzzling and we need to put in more time to understand them. Still, I think if we're aiming to get as many points as we can, then we can answer it as best as we can based on our understanding. I think the previous question with the state machine was a lot easier to do. Nevertheless, if we are attempting to answer all these questions in this sample exam, in this exam from the past years, then particularly October, I think, for the year 2022, 2022, then I think this is one way that we can understand the structure of the exam and the stuff that we need to know prior to taking the exam. Okay.